ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। हरि ओम। ओम गुरुभ्यो नमः। ओम गं गणपतये नमः। ओम ऐं सरस्वत्यै नमः। ओम गणानां त्वा गणपतिगुं हवामहे कविं कवीनामुपमश्रवस्तमं ज्येष्ठराजं ब्रह्मणां ब्रह्मणस्पत आनशृण्वन्नोदिभिः सीदसादनम्। ओम श्री महागणपतये नमः। ओम नमः शिवाय गुरवे सच्चिदानन्दमूर्तये निष्प्रपञ्चाय शान्ताय निरालम्बाय तेजसे। ओम यस्यात्मभूतस्य गुरुप्रसादात् अहं विमुक्तोऽस्मि संसारबन्धात् सर्वोपदेष्टुः शिवानन्दमूर्तेः मृदुअग्रयुग्मं प्रणतोऽस्मि नित्यं दयासिन्धुं दीनबन्धुं शास्त्रार्थबोधनपटुं मस्करीन्द्रवरं नौमि श्रीचिदानन्दसद्गुरुम्। ॐ प्राणिनां दुःखहर्तारौ ज्ञानदौ भुवनमुक्तये शिवानन्दचिदानन्दौ आश्रये गुरुसत्तमो। ओम नमो नारायणाय 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 ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते रामचंद्राय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते रामचंद्राय ओम नमो भगवते शिवानंदाय ओम नमो भगवते चिदानंदाय So from today onwards, I will be sharing with you on Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. Before that, all these darshanas have their base on the certain philosophical scriptures, and this country is enriched with a huge volume of philosophical scriptures, much more than the whole world has, the rest of the world has. So I will be sharing with you an introduction on those scriptures. It's just a bird's view, just an overview of the scriptures, what these scriptures are, what it contains. And this book you should bring every day. Every day when you come to the class, you should bring this book. And then I will go by sutra on this. I will read the sutra, make you repeat it. Afterwards, this book is of no use for reference of the sutras. Okay? And I will give explanations of each sutra, word by word meaning, what it is, what it contains. All those things I will tell you according to the level of your knowledge and in a very practical way. And what I will be sharing with you, you may not find in other books. So there is no need to read any other book. I will explain this and explain to you word by word the meaning of the sutras, what it contains, and how it is beneficial to you. That also I will share with you. Okay, you should bring this book, and everybody should have this book in the table. And you should, when I read the sutras, you should refer to the sutra, so that you will be able to read it, because sometimes what I speak, you may not understand. So it is there in the Sanskrit, and the transliteration is also there. Atha yoga anishasana, if we say, then you can see Atha yoga anishasana, you can read like that. For that purpose, we are bringing these sutras, this book. Okay, you should bring every day this book. Now I will share with you on the basic scriptures. The most ancient scripture in India, in fact in the whole world, the most ancient scriptures, even the Western scholars have accepted that the most ancient scriptures are the Vedas. And although this is the most ancient scripture, and we all accept it as a wonderful scripture, and many do not have access into that, and many do not know what it contains. You all heard about Vedas, and what it contains. Someone asks you, what will you say? What is the content of the Veda? Somebody asks, what will you say? What will you say? Tell me. Philosophy speaks about God, something like that. Okay, am I right? Contains about Veda. What is this Veda contain? Somebody, you go to a country, you go to US, and someone asks, oh, you are from India. Oh, I heard about the Vedas there, what it contains. Someone asks you, what will you say?
Contains everything.
Huh?
It contains everything.
Oh, everything means what?
About the creation and creation.
Okay, it is okay. It contains everything, is okay. But one of the commentators, there is only one commentary available now for the Vedas. Other commentators we do not know. One of the commentators, his name was Vidyaranya. Vidyaranya, otherwise they call it as Sayanacharya. The Sayanacharya has written a commentary for the Vedas, and his own views about it from a particular angle. So he writes, as you have rightly said, it takes into consideration the human aspirations. It takes into consideration human aspirations. So, not only the human, here we have the human beings, the subhuman beings. So what do you want here? Everyone wants to be happy. Everyone wants to be free. No one wants to be unhappy. I want to be happy. I should have some food. I should enjoy the life here. I want to see everything pleasant, beautiful. So there is a desire in us to be happy and desire in us to be free. It is common to me and you will find the same thing with a dog, with monkeys, with the trees, everything. Nobody wants to be unhappy. They want to be free. Nobody wants to be restricted. If I say that you should come here in time, you may not like it actually. A little later I will come, what is there? So we don't want to be controlled. And we want to be totally free. Likewise, everything wants to be free. Even the trees wants to be free. They don't want to be disturbed by other persons. So even the dog has got its area. Nobody else should come there. It is my area. Why are you coming here? It will bark. So likewise the trees. The trees, they want light. So especially the palm trees, if they don't get light, they will go like this. They go like this. It's in the coastal areas of India, in Kerala and Tamil Nadu. You will find the palm trees, the coconut trees going like this. They want light. So if any other obstructions are there, they will go the other way. Water wants to be free, it wants to flow. When some obstructions are there, then it will go the other way around. When a hill is there, it will go through the valleys. So everybody wants to be free. Everybody wants to be happy. And so how you become happy? What makes you happy? So we consider that we need something. If you get that, you become happy. You need something. I want this. Now I feel little thirsty. Then I have little water is there. I'm happy. If water is not there, Swamiji, can you get me water? I will say. So we have got certain wants. The things which we do not have. If it is already we are having, then there is no want. If you don't have something, and if you want it, and you think that without that I am incomplete. So without that I am incomplete. Why should we have a desire? We consider that we don't have that. To make ourselves happy, we need that thing. And the second is, we have something, but we don't want to have it. We want to get rid of it. Something if we get, we become happy. Something if we get rid of, we become happy. There is a problem. There is very sweat now. It is cold. You don't want this cold. Then you put on a jacket. And if it is hot, we don't want the jacket. We throw the jacket. So the Sayanacharya says that the Vedas contain such things to achieve what you want to achieve, and also to get rid of those which you want to get rid of. Ishta prapti anishta pariharayoho alaukikam upayam Veda. It starts like that. What the Veda contains. Ishta prapti. Ishta means what you like. Prapti means achieve. What you want to achieve, the methodology, the technique to achieve what you want to achieve. And also, anishta parihara. Anishta means what? Ishta means like. Anishta means that you don't like. What you have, but you don't like to have. To get rid of that, it gives a technique, and technique not a mundane technique. Alaukika upaya. It's not a laukika upaya. It is not a worldly technique. It is a supra-worldly, supra-mundane technique. So, the Veda speaks about how to be happy by achieving what you want to achieve, and also to get rid of those things which you want to get rid of. So it takes into your basic requirement and speaks about that. Then, Sakala Devata Dharmasya Parabrahma Tattvasya Padipadakam Vera. Also it speaks about the superintending deities, Devata Dharma. So this terminology you may not be familiar. Devata does not mean God. In India, Devata, Deva does not mean God. The Supreme God is defined as Brahman or Ishvara like that. Devata means the superintending deities. So I will come to that little more later. The ancients consider that there are subtler levels, or you take anything, it has got a gross level and subtler levels. What we see, and also there are certain things beyond our sight. There is something which is unseen, something which is subtle. Whatever we see, a gross thing. Our sense organs are made of elements, the 5 elements. The water, earth, water, fire, air and ether. Our body is also made of the same thing. Not only our body, even the trees are made of the same thing. So the food we eat and that which eats, you eat something. What you eat and one who eats, they are non-different. Because that what you eat, that has the finer forms of that has become you. Your body is made of the same stuff, or is made of the stuff which you eat. Then how do you say you are different from the atta you eat? You eat the wheat. How are you different from the wheat? You are made up of wheat. If a gold ornament is made of gold, we call it as gold. Then why not I call you a vegetable? How do you say that you are different from a vegetable? You are made up of a vegetable, wheat and groceries and other things. Then how do you claim that you are superior to that? So some difference is there. You are not exactly, I cannot call you as vegetable. That you are a little different from the vegetable. Where exactly the difference is? So they say that there are finer levels. Of course, we are made of the rice, wheat and other things we eat. But we are not just rice and wheat. Something else is also. Some intelligent principle is pulsating in us. We are little different from that. Of course, the gross material is same, but it is little different. So they call that at the finer levels, at the subtler levels, there is something which is superior. So they call it as the devatas. Devata means, the word devata means divyate iti devata. That which is pulsating, that which is a light, that which is intelligence, that which is consciousness. This wood, we do not know whether it has got intelligence. The dog may not be as much intelligent as you are. It may not be able to go through the website and find out what is happening in the States. But the dog has got its intelligence. The dog can smell and find out who this person is. And the Ulysses, when Homer's Ulysses, that man came back after so many years of sleep. Nobody recognized, even his wife could not recognize him. But the dog recognized. The dog recognizes and wags its tail. Then the wife understands, must be, this is my husband. So the dog is much more intelligent than you. So there is intelligent principles in everything. Divyate iti devaha. Divyate means that which is shedding light, that which is source of light. So there is light in you. The very same light may be there in the vegetable. That is not so much conspicuous. We are not able to see that light. Somehow I am able to see that light in you. You speak, you are mobile. I find some special emotions in you. So, certain principles, certain levels of intelligence, a higher levels of intelligence, a higher level of consciousness, a higher level of light we see in certain things. It may be lying dormant in those gross things, though the gross things contain that subtler levels of these materials we see here, that they call it as devata. So everything is here has got that subtler level, and so that they call it as devata. So it speaks about the superintending principle, that conscious principle, that source of intelligence which gives existence to that gross being. the subtler aspect in the gross matter, they call it as Devata. That is how even the rain is considered as God, rain God. It is different from the mythology of the Greek mythology. Their rain god and the Indian rain god are different. The fire is considered, Agni is a principle. It is not the elemental fire. It is different. So it speaks about the various superintending principles. And the most subtlest thing, which being the most subtle, it pervades everywhere, that which they call it as God. If someone says God is all pervading, what do they mean by that? Then God must be here in this. Where is He? If God is all pervading, where is He? Is He there in this mic, this blackboard, in the dog, in the monkeys, where He is? So they give an example like this. You take a tree, a big tree, a mango tree or an apple tree. So the tree is enriched, the tree grows and it gives fruits. From the food it draws from the soil. So it draws the food from the soil. And the inner core of the tree, we call it as the sap. The outer bark is very hard, but if you cut the tree, as you go in, the center portion is very soft. And through that the food passes. When the food passes, it passes in the form of a liquid. So naturally, the central core of the tree is very soft and they call it as the sap. The sap actually nourishes every part of the tree. The hard bark outside is a modification of this sap. Then when you come to the branches are nothing but the sap modified. The tender leaves, the purple leaves in the mango trees are the sap only. And the green, thick, green leaf and the dry leaf. The raw mango, which is sourish, and the sweet mango, all are modification of the same sap. So we eat the mango, we don't eat the bark. We don't eat the twig of the tree. So each one has got different properties. One is very sweet and very tender. The other is very hard. So the sap has modified itself. It manifests in different forms. What we see here actually. So the explanation of that supreme reality is like a sap which appears as different things with different textures, different properties, different colors. So some are even diametrically opposite. The qualities are some diametrically opposite. One is very hard and the other is very soft. One has a thick brown color, the other has a sweet crimson color, red color. And sometimes on the top of this, where the twig is there, when the mango is connected with the twig, there will be some solution. It will even burn your, especially these jacked fruits, the gum which you get, that will burn your finger. The cashew nuts, that oil will burn you. That oil touches here means it will burn. The cashew, when they process, the hands will go white like a leukoderma. So the qualities are entirely different, opposite to each other. Something burns, something very sweet, something very pleasant, something totally unpleasant. So how come that one thing has become all these things? So they postulate that one entity which has become all these many, all these apparent contradictions, the opposite qualities are the manifestation of one great principle, the great being. Somewhere in South America, the tribals have made a song, a prayer. They call it as the great being. The great being has become all these things. So it speaks about the superintending deities and also beyond, transcending even that one principle which has manifested are all these things. So the content of the Vedas, the commentator Sayanacharya puts it as, it takes into consideration the human aspirations. It speaks to you as to how you can be happy, how you can be free. And it gives a technique which is not mundane but something supra-mundane. I want money, how to get money. If you look like that, it may not be there. You want to be happy, how to be happy, it says. You want to be free, how to be free. So it speaks about that. Then normally a question arises in the mind. Who wrote this? Who composed it? When it was composed? These are the questions normally people, now we have been trained to think in that way. So a certain questions we put, thinking that this is the only logic. Even our logic is also a set of logic we are made to think. It is not total logic. Even the logic can be an absurd thing. Your logic can be an absurd thing. So whenever a question, or when who wrote it, somebody must be there to create it. Why not there be something which has no creator at all? Why should you think? Why you made a hypothesis that everything was created by somebody? Who wrote this? This was made by whom? There can be something which has not been made by somebody. It might have come on its own. Why not we think like that? So our rationality also, it is a confined rationality. Your logic has got a limitation. So naturally we think that somebody might have written. So because Semitic religions have come from somebody, and then we have known that way, and the thinkers have seen that. Based on that, you don't have any intelligence. What you have seen and heard, that is your intelligence. Your information is what you have seen and heard. So something which is not already seen and already heard is there. It is a new knowledge. So the ancient says it was not written by somebody. It does not come through any one single source. The ancients proclaim that this is a revelation. This is an oracle. And then they say it was not written by anybody. It is the breath of God. The language they use is, it is the breath of the God. God's breath. Who is that God? And what is His breath? So it is a scientific way of putting things. What I speak is what? What I speak is my breath. You understand me? Whatever you speak is a modification of your breath. We have instruments, musical instruments. Some are played on string, with string we play, stringed instruments. Some are piped instruments, air is used. For example, the shehnai or a flute. So someone blows the air. When you blow the air, it comes in the form of a music. You understand me? Somebody plays a shehnai or other instruments which are piped instruments. So the air only comes in the form of music. And what I speak is my air. My breath passes through certain areas. If I don't breathe, if I don't blow out air, you will not hear any sound. I have to push out air. When the air is pushed out, you get the sound. Otherwise, what is the sound? So I am like a flute, like any other musical instrument. We are all musical instruments, and we play our music when we speak. Some sounds come from this navel area, some come from the chest area, some from the throat, some from the palate, some from the labels. Okay? When we speak, actually, we blow out air. So they say that the God's breath is the Vedas. Yasya nishwasanam vedaha. Nishwasana means the blowing out of air is Vedas. Yasya nishwasanam vedaha. So as we speak out, he has spoken it out. So the sound comes from the various parts of the bodies. As we speak, you cannot say, closing your eyes, you cannot say ah. You say ah, what? The moment you open your mouth, ah will come. Whether he is an Indian or a German, if he opens the mouth, it will be only ah. It makes no difference. And when you close the mouth, what will happen? It will be common for everybody. When someone has to say ma, the lips has to be used. It's a label sound. There are certain sounds which come from the dental areas. Dantyam they call it as. Comes from the danta. Comes from the lips. And comes through the nose. Certain sounds comes from the nose. Certain comes from the chest. Some from, if you say bha, it has to come from the belly. Nabhi hrit kantha rasana. Nabhi hrit kantha rasana. Rasana means tongue. So some sounds come from the nabhi, bha. Some comes from the chest area. Some from the throat. Some sounds from the nose. Even the nose, you say, there is a nasal sound. So these are all, the air passes through certain areas. As you play the notes, sa, re, ga, ma, and each one hole, if you open it, gives sa. The other will open, becomes re. The third one, it gives ma. Likewise, the sound comes from the different areas of the body. And it is my speech is my breath. In the Vedas, there is a statement that apranan anapanan vagvadati. When you speak, actually, you are doing a pranayama. When you are speaking, you are doing a pranayama because neither you are inhaling nor exhaling. The regulation, there is a regulation of your breath pattern while you are speaking. You cannot speak. When you are inhaling, you cannot speak. When you are, then also you cannot speak. Apranan anapanan vagvadati. Without inhalation and exhalation, we speak. You are knowingly or unknowingly doing a pranayama. When you are speaking, you cannot worry about anything. Whatever problem is there, you go and speak to someone. If you don't speak about the problem, you speak about this Sri Krishna, or you speak about Swami Shivananda, or you speak about the beauty here, you explain the tree, where your worry will be. You cannot worry anything. But mind will not allow you to speak like that. So you are doing a pranayama. You got my point actually. These are simple things which you may not be knowing actually. So when we speak, we are doing a pranayama. So the Vedas are considered as the speech. that came from the mouth of the Supreme Reality. It does not pertain to anyone. It can be yours, it can be mine, anybody's. That is why in the Vedas you find that it is told by so and so, told by so and so, told by so and so. Vaishampayana has said like this, Vyasa has said like this. And when they say, we don't attribute that as his invention or his. He has only told that. It was already there. You cannot speak anything which is not already there. I question your intelligence also. We all claim that we are very intelligent fellow. I have found out all these things, stupid things. What you have found out? Already it is there. You only give an interpretation or explanation of what is already existing. Maybe you have made some combinations, some permutations. So, what is already existing only we speak about. Maybe we have made some, given new interpretations, mixed up certain things and make it. All food items are made of certain ingredients, all sweets are made of sugar only. You put here this little, instead of this little, another product. Okay, I will share with you tomorrow. Hari Om Tat Sat.